He didn't come back looking for anyone. Not a face, not a name. He came back because some places never really let us go. No matter how many years pass, no matter how far life carries us away, there are cities that keep calling, not loudly, but steadily. He hadn't planned this trip. It happened the way many late life decisions do, quietly, without an announcement. One morning he woke with a feeling he couldn't name, not sadness, not longing, just a weight, a gentle pressure somewhere behind the ribs. By noon, he had booked the ticket. The city looked smaller than he remembered, or maybe he had simply grown larger with time. Shoulders once firm had softened, steps slower now, breath more deliberate. The station smelled different, less smoke, more metal, less urgency. But the air still carried something familiar, a faint echo of voices that once filled these streets. Young voices, unafraid voices. He stood still for a moment, watching people pass. They moved fast, eyes on screens, hands full. No one noticed him, and that was fine. He walked without direction at first, past storefronts that used to be bakeries, past corners where laughter once spilled out late at night, past a narrow street where decades ago two young soldiers leaned against a wall, sharing a cigarette they weren't supposed to have. He smiled at that memory. They had both been terrible at hiding their nerves back then. Too much talking, too much joking, as if laughter could keep fear away. It couldn't. The war didn't announce itself when it arrived. It crept in, through rumors, through newspaper headlines folded too often, through the way conversations suddenly lowered in volume. And then one day, there were uniforms, orders, names on lists. He remembered standing in line, holding his papers, pretending not to notice how his hands trembled. Beside him stood another man. Same age, same uniform, different eyes, calmer. That was the first thing he noticed. "You look like you already know how this ends," he had said, half joking. The other man shrugged. "Everything ends," he replied, "but not everything matters the same." He didn't understand that sentence back then. Not really. They trained together, marched together, waited together, shared stories they pretended were casual but carried like armor. The other man talked about his mother, about a house near a river, about a dog that followed him everywhere. He talked about a girl he might marry someday, or might not. "It depends on who comes back," he had said quietly. That sentence stayed. The city during the war was louder, engines, boots, sirens, but there were also moments of strange stillness, late evenings when the sky held its breath, early mornings when fog softened everything. They would sit together during those moments, not talking much, just listening, because silence back then meant survival. He stopped walking now, standing in front of a park. The benches were new, the trees older. He recognized the curve of the path immediately. This was where they had sat one afternoon, waiting for transport orders. They had nothing to do, nowhere to be. And yet, the tension had been unbearable. "I don't think I'll come back here," the other man had said. "Why not?" he asked. The reply came after a long pause. "Because if I do, I'll know exactly who didn't make it." They didn't speak after that. He sat down on the bench now, carefully, as if the wood might remember. He placed his hands on his knees, older hands now, veined, scarred, hands that had held rifles and letters, and later grandchildren. Hands that had learned how to let go. The war took many things, youth, certainty, illusions, but it took people most of all. Some disappeared in the chaos, some were gone in an instant, some faded slowly, their names spoken less often each year. The other man was one of those, gone on a morning that began like any other. No warning, no final words, just a space where someone used to be. He remembered the moment he found out. Standing in line again, different papers this time. The officer's voice had been calm, practiced, as if delivering absence had become routine. He had nodded, thanked him, and walked away because that was what you did. Back then, grief had no time. There were orders to follow, routes to memorize, days to survive. He told himself he would think about it later. He didn't realize that later sometimes means decades. The city continued without them. Buildings rose, streets widened, new names replaced old ones, but some corners refused to change. The park, the riverbank, a small cafe that still smelled faintly of burned coffee. He walked there now, sat at a table by the window, ordered tea. He remembered sitting here once, helmet beside him, hands shaking slightly. The other man had noticed. "You don't have to be brave all the time," he had said. "I know," he replied, "but I don't know how to stop." The tea arrived. Steam rose gently. He stared at the surface, watched his reflection ripple, an older face now, lines carved by years no photograph could explain. He wondered what the other man would have looked like. Gray hair, perhaps. A slower walk, a familiar laugh, softened by time. Or maybe none of that. Maybe he stayed young forever. After the war, he tried to move forward. Like everyone else. Work, marriage, children. Life filled itself quickly, as if afraid of empty space. But sometimes, late at night, he would hear a presence, not words, just memory. He paid for the tea and stepped back outside. The sun was lower now. The city glowed in that brief, forgiving light that makes everything seem kinder than it is. Without planning to, he walked toward the river. The same river from the stories, the one near the house, the one with the dog. He had never seen it before, and yet it felt familiar. He stood at the railing, watching the water move forward, never stopping, never looking back. "I made it," he whispered, not proudly, not sadly, just honestly. He waited, as if expecting an answer. None came. And yet the silence felt full, not empty, full of everything that had been said once, and everything that never had the chance. He closed his eyes and let the sounds of the city pass through him. Traffic, footsteps, a distant laugh, life continuing. He understood something then. He hadn't come back to meet anyone. He had come back to acknowledge absence, to stand in places where memory still lived, to say without witnesses, "You mattered." And that was enough. As evening settled, he turned away from the river and walked back through the city one last time. Not searching, not hoping, just remembering. Some reunions don't happen in the flesh, they happen quietly, inside us, where time loosens its grip and the past is finally allowed to breathe. And if this moment feels familiar, I'm here, listening. You're not alone.